chorale also entered other forms of compositions. Bach, like many of his predecessors, composed so-called chorale fantasias. These were pieces written for the organ, where the chorale melody was held in one part and the other parts would take on either complicated counter melodies or even variations of the original line. The term chorale fantasia was really only used for organ pieces, with the notable exception of Beethoven. But choral and instrumental pieces using this style do exist. A very famous example of a chorale fantasia is Bach's opening chorus to his St. Matthew Passion, Kommt Töchter helft mir klagen, where the Lutheran Passion hymn, O Lamm Gottes unschuldig, appears as a simple chorale line on top of a richly scored movement. But what happened in the following centuries when music moved out of the churches into the concert halls? Well, you'll be pleased to hear, the chorale survived. Many composers followed the tradition of the aforementioned masters of the 17th and 18th century by weaving our familiar chorale melodies into symphonies, sonatas and concertos. I want to share with you my two personal favourites. In 1830, Felix Mendelssohn composes his Fifth Symphony in honour of the 300th anniversary of the presentation of the Augsburg Confession, the primary confession of the Lutheran Church. In the opening of the finale, a solo flute plays the opening line of the aforementioned chorale Ein feste Burg ist unser Gott, soon joined by other wind and then by the rest of the orchestra, to give us a richly harmonized version of this simple tune. Around 100 years later, in 1935, the Austrian composer Alban Berg wrote his violin concerto. He dedicated the piece to Manon Gropius, Alma Mahler's daughter, who had died of polio at the age of 18. Alban Berg loosely uses the 12-tone technique throughout the work, and in the final section of the concerto, he quotes the chorale Es ist genug, from Bach's cantata BWV 60.
Es ist genug, Herr, wärst dir gefällt, so spanne mich doch aus.
This chorale was such a good choice, not only because it starts with the last four notes of Berg's tone row, but also because the text makes such a fitting reference to Manon. Berg even wrote the text of the chorale lines under the notes in the score. We know that at the time of composing this concerto, Berg asked to see a collection of Bach's chorale settings. He had set his eye on Es ist genug and apparently wanted to see Bach's harmonization, which we can hear in the clarinets in the concerto. And here we have it. 400 years after Luther introduced the congregation to his chorale, one of the greatest composers of the 20th century reminds us of the power of a simple tune. I hope that this will encourage everybody to listen out for those magical melodies. You'll be surprised to see how often they creep up on us, move us, and act like a beacon that shapes and guides us through history in music.